With more than 2 million podcasts available for people to choose from, the question you have to ask yourself is, why would anyone listen to your podcast? It sounds like a harsh question, but in today's video, I've got a few thoughts to help you answer it.
This is the place for podcasters.
Welcome back to the channel. Brian here with Summit City Studios, and this is the place for podcasters. On this channel, we talk about tips, tools, and tech to help you create a great sounding podcast. But as much as I harp on your podcast sounding great, that's not enough for people to listen to it. We have to answer the question of why would anyone want to listen to the great sounding podcasts that we create. So today, to help us answer that question, I've got 3 other questions, smaller questions, that if we can answer these, it'll help us answer that big question. And here's why I wanted to do this, why it's on my mind. You see, I'm in the middle of developing another new podcast that I'll talk more about maybe in another video coming up in the next week or so. So I'm wrestling with the same question of why would anyone want to listen to this podcast that I'm developing? And there's 3 questions or 3 thoughts that I've had to help me answer that big one, and I want to share them with you today. The first question you have to ask yourself is, what do you have to offer? Now, I did a whole video on that where I offered some filters to help you think through what it is that you have to offer as you think through the themes and the topics that you want to talk about. I'll link that video at the end of this one, so be sure you watch until the end so you can just click that. It's also linked in the description below. But we can't stop there. It's not enough just to know what we have to offer. We have to know who we're trying to reach. So the second question is, who is your audience? And I would recommend you get really specific with who that is. Give them a name. What's their gender? How old are they? What's their family situation? What kind of car do they drive? What part of the country do they live in? What are their hobbies? What do they love to do? Where do they work? Those types of questions that right now I understand I'm just rambling them off and it sounds really ridiculous, but the more you know about who they are, the more you're going to know about what their needs are, what kind of questions they're asking, and why they would want to listen to your podcast. You see, that's the big question we're trying to answer, right? So once you're clear on what you have to offer and you know who your audience is, the third question that will help you answer the big one is, how will you craft your content to connect with your audience? And this is more a question of format than anything else. And that's, even that word is layered, because format could be audio or video, but it could also be kind of how you set up your podcast. If it's just going to be you, or you're going to have a co-host or a guest with you occasionally, someone you're interviewing, are you going to have a panel discussion, or is it going to be more of a storytelling podcast? See, those are all different formats or different styles or ways to deliver your content to your audience. So you can see how it's not enough to know just what you deliver, and it's not enough to know just who it is you're trying to reach. But answering those first 2 questions will help you answer that third question of how to craft the content to connect with your audience, which will all help you answer the big question of why anyone would listen to your podcast. So I know I've rambled on and asked you a lot of questions in this video, but I do have one more question that I'd love for you to respond to in the comments. Which of these 3 questions that I asked you today are the most difficult for you to answer? So just to recap, those 3 questions are, what do you have to offer? Who is your audience? And how will you craft your content to connect with your audience? Which of those 3 questions is the most difficult for you to answer at this moment for your podcast? Respond in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That'll do it for this video. I hope it's been helpful. If so, you know what to do. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button for more content just like this, and I'll see you in the next video. If you're a podcaster or you're looking to get started podcasting, but you need some help, most specifically on the back end of the editing and the post-production process of your podcast, that's what I love to do. Visit me at summitcitystudios.com to find out how I can help you create a great sounding podcast.